But if those bunnies feel exploited even a little bit, I am pulling the plug.
Yes.
Project Gorgon, the MMO in which you can fight a cow as a cow. Scare off NPCs due to their arachnophobia, or bang an elven bard. Blending the whimsical with the woeful, this MMORPG fuses old school design with features commonly found in other genres to create a unique blend of gameplay not experienced elsewhere. So let's take an in-depth look at this ambitious project. Gorgon. I'm Marl MMO, and I connect gamers to MMOs they'll love. Project Gorgon is an MMORPG in early access on Steam, with nearly 2,000 very positive reviews. But it recently experienced a crisis. Here's the report from the development team themselves.
We recently had bad news to share with our community. We'd let everybody know 2 years ago that I was diagnosed with cancer. Unfortunately, that has become stage 4 cancer, so that is not going to go well. At the same time, we had run into some problems with money. Having enough money to continue full-time development with the other stuff that's going on. And we, of course, needed to let everybody know what was here and that we need to drop back to part-time development for a bit while we figure this out. And I expected players to be, sad, sure, but mostly disappointed and possibly angry that we had failed to do better with the game that we have promised them.
Yet this is not the end of their story. Hope's on the horizon, yet it's up to us to decide the MMO's future. MMOs are weird. You can be a dude, yet roleplay as a female in a shared virtual environment, or as a lady, play the character creation section of City of Heroes, then be done with the game. But some titles take projection further, enabling you to take the form of a creature, such as the infamous chicken run to Mordor in Lord of the Rings Online. But these modal expressions of self-representation are nothing compared to the freedom you can experience in Project Gorgon. Expand beyond the horizons of humanoid forms to transcend to the bestial. Play as the mighty pig, the honorable cow, the athletic deer.
I don't know why you need this option, but...
Bat, duck, bunny, each of which is functionally its own class with special skills and access to in-game areas permitted only for creatures.
Yeah, since we're humanoids, they have defenses against us, but if we were an animal, say a fox or we would be able to just go visit here.
This is only the beginning, and it's just one reason why Project Gorgon is an absolutely ridiculous MMO. But animal forms are just the beginning of what's unique. For example, while a form of quests exists, your progression isn't tied to completing conventional hubs. In fact, your own curiosity tends to be the center of gravity around which your gameplay sessions orbit. Let me demonstrate. After designing your toon, your character story begins after being betrayed by a cackle of crones. Washed ashore after once wearing ornate robes, you find yourselves ordained with tattering clothes. You're on Anagoge, an island inspired from mystical interpretations of reality. A start to an MMO that only becomes increasingly bewildering. Project Gorgon is about discovery, solving puzzles and rewarding the player's creativity instead of putting them on a conveyor belt motivated by a carrot on a stick. Mixed metaphor aside, this liminal island is the perfect place to find your footing. Within the first minute, you learn how to interact with the world, eat food, equip items, defeat mobs, and loot their pockets. During this time, you're also introduced to Project Gorgon's combat that's different from most MMOs while still being approachable. We'll do a deep dive later, but by now it's clear there's no auto attack, and each foe's purple rage circle must be monitored to avoid being the victim of their special attack. Those who remember early vanilla Guild Wars 2 should recall that you gain access to new skills as you leveled learned ones. Project Gorgon is a bit similar, yet the way you learn new skills is quite different. But before we get to that, there is another important comparison not to Guild Wars 2, but to its predecessor, Guild Wars 1. One of my favorite features of that classic title was dual classing, that became more flexible once you have ascended. Project Gorgon takes this idea, yet makes it even more flexible. Instead of classes, you learn weapon or animal skills. Each skill is essentially a class, however, you can equip any two you want, and you can replace them out of combat, much like Rift's soul system. It's extremely flexible and rewards your intelligence for finding the combination that causes you to have fun. Those who enjoy old school RuneScape should also find a similar gameplay loop here. Still on the tutorial island, we stumble upon some cheese. Over at the next hill, we see a chest with some teasing pedestals. After realizing it's a puzzle that took me far too long to solve, if I'm being honest, the chest opens. Inside is a booklet on how to tame a rat. What's the reagent? You guessed it. But this also shows that Project Gorgon has an EverQuest 2 skill system in that abilities and their upgrades can be dropped by mobs, used, or sold to NPCs or other players. So now we have a pet rat and stumble upon Loara. This interaction is by far the most significant introduction to Project Gorgon's mechanics, yet many, including myself, rushed through to our own detriment. Each NPC has a relationship with you, like a mini faction system, that directly affects their prices, what skills they'll teach you, and whether or not additional services become available. It's like Black Desert Online's Amity system, if that had any depth at all. In short, you level up each NPC you encounter, and the entire basis of your progression orbits which NPCs you befriend or those you ignore. Some provide unique equipment at a certain tier of friendship, and others simply ignore you if you aren't a wolf, for example. In this way, Project Gorgon completely bucks the trend of conventional MMOs that lead you through the world in a linear way. You may meet an NPC who teaches a unique ability that completely side rails what you thought you were going to do that day. Old school RuneScape is no different. Want to kill goblins? You need a weapon, but you need ore to smelt first. And after you're done with that, you need food for healing, so you find cows to slay or fish to catch. Project Gorgon is harmonious, and those who love free-form MMORPGs would find much to treasure in this virtual world. Also, besides Loara is a locked chest. What's inside, and how do we get in? We also stumbled upon a training dummy that is immune to kinetic damage types, but we only have a sword. We also looted a shield, yet we can only use it passively. We can't dash with it yet. Note that the other combat skill we have is unarmed, and now that we have a shield, we cannot use some of the skills that require hands. Animal skills interact with such restrictions too, because a deer can't punch, right? Anyways, we meet Ryger, a depressed elf, dejected in a cobweb-infested stone hut. While he has much speculation to share about the crones, he's unwilling to teach you another combat skill: psychology. The irony. After figuring out that alchemy can bring this psychologist joy, we learn a new combat skill. Can this be used to damage that training dummy? We loot a key. Oh, this must unlock the chest near Loara. And these pillars with numbers? What are these mappings for? Apparently we have to delve a dungeon to get off the island. But what's this red barrier that demands I know the number of gods in order to continue? And this boss who turns your toon's head into what has to be a reference to GoldenEye unless you defeat him? You get the picture. Project Gorgon is a game of twists and turns, teasing features, foreshadowing content, and enabling you to bask in the joy of your own cleverness. Of course, the island teaches you the basics of crafting, harvesting materials from the world or mobs, and managing your equipment, which leads me to my favorite feature of Project Gorgon. Equipment is like Diablo 3 had a baby with Asheron's Call 1.
Hey!
Yeah?
What the hell is this?
For the unaware, in Diablo, legendary gear adds or changes functionality of one of your skills, yet only one ability typically can be modified. Project Gorgon extends this idea, yet every modifier can affect your abilities. And it goes beyond +1 damage too. It can change a single target to be an AoE, or add a dot to a direct damage ability. But like Asheron's Call 1, gear is procedurally generated from every mob, so you always have a chance to loot something spectacular. Moreover, the drop system considers which 2 combat skills you have activated, so drops are usually relevant for your build. Remember that shield we equipped earlier? After figuring out how to run out of the dungeon, and I should add that there are other ways off the island, I found an old battered shield. Like the cheese, this item has to be relevant. Yet, as we're moving through the cavern to find its owner, I die to spiders. A lot of spiders, many times. Project Gorgon is not punishingly hard, yet if you want to earn your wins, you'll find plenty of challenges here. Plus, a giant spider ate me, which is fun, especially since we gain death experience. Yes, no corpse runs from vanilla EverQuest, or experience loss here. Death is a mix of Kenshi and Planescape Torment. Like the former, when you die, you become tougher. And like the latter, it doesn't matter how often you die. Some even use it as a form of fast travel. But we need to find the owner of this shield. After stumbling through the first open world zone outside of the cave, we wobble into an inn. In the corner is a man who not only can teach us how to use a shield, yet who also lost the one we found. But more than this, he can also enhance our gear with augments. Like legendary aspects in Diablo 4, augments are item powers that can be added to gear. There are nuances and limits that veterans can clarify below, yet the point is that when an item drops, its story is far from over. You can extract powers from gear, reroll them, and so much more. Project Gorgon's gear system can compete with the very best ARPGs, but combat skills are similar. The same man can teach us how to use alchemy to add temporal augments to our shield. This buff adds a damage shield to our equipped buckler, effectively making defense offense. Yet down the road is a dwarf who is practicing her handwriting. She convinces us that learning penmanship can help us fight better, just like lumberjacking made axe templates more effective in Ultima Online. Through calligraphy, you can learn combos that provide special buffs when using a sword. This is like the default attack ability in Guild Wars 2, in which the last attack is a finale, yet this system is more robust, and it's not static. This leads us to combat and why it's unique in Project Gorgon. Remember the purple circle to the right of a mob's resource bar? If that fills up, they can use a special ability that's unique for that mob type against you. However, there are skills that reduce the bar, yet they often deal little damage, so it's up to you to decide if that trade-off is worth it. Moreover, some mobs can call for help, and it is very easy to become quickly overwhelmed in combat. Still more, when fighting groups of mobs, one of them can channel a group ability, so you have to decide if you want to continue fighting your current target or interrupt the new threat. Plus, there's a combat refresh mechanic. Players of EverQuest 2 can think of this sort of like a mini-ding. In short, each combat skill comes with a basic attack that after a few seconds can trigger this renewal that grants some HP, armor, and power back. Of course, equipment can interact with this mechanic too, and there is skill to know when you trigger and when to save this built-in respite during combat. As you can imagine, this is just the beginning of combat mechanics in Project Gorgon. In fact, all of these interacting layers remind me of Anarchy Online, although Project Gorgon is less complicated while still maintaining its complexity. Now, keep in mind that Project Gorgon is still in early access. I hope it's clear that the MMO isn't just a mile wide, it's 10 miles deep. Each skill in the game has 90 levels to obtain. In fact, the lead developer said this about the amount of content currently available in early access. In context to an early access MMO releasing level 90 content, that's incredible.
Yeah, you're right. Thinking about it that way, it's kind of absurd. That I really should have gotten this out the door years ago. That would have solved a lot of problems.
Admittedly, we need a break. So let's rest in Cerebule Keep, the first main town we encounter. Incidentally, taking power naps in beds grants a buff. And, of course, the city center is filled with animals. And I mean lots of animals. Cows, rabbits, foxes, deer, bats, spiders. It's like we've been transported to once upon a forest. In fact, building out such a rich feature set was not originally in Project Gorgon's design document, but as an accidental stroke of genius. One cauldron, placed in an early alpha zone, was the catalyst by which beast forms blossomed. Project Gorgon's other lead dev, Asheron, speaks about it when I interviewed her. What was the origin of that type of system? Because obviously, I don't know how many animal combat classes exist, but it's become, in my mind, one of the iconic features of Project Gorgon that's also extremely beloved by the community.
And we did not plan it this way. It's all because of the damn cow. Okay. So
In the original tutorial cave?
yes.
No way.
So
Oh my
when we
gosh.
did it, we knew we wanted to have bosses with curses.
Yes,
That was a big deal. We're going to curse you. One of the first curses that we were testing turned you into a cow.
Now, unlike D&D derivatives, animal forms in Project Gorgon are not exclusively tied to the druid skill. Each beast form is its own progression path with unique abilities. A veteran who has leveled all current animal forms had this to say.
So I've been playing the animal forms in this game probably since about 2019, and it was one of those things like I got to the end game of combat skills, and everyone's like, well, if you're really an expert, you go and play an animal form. And I was like, I don't understand the difference, but then certain NPCs won't talk to you, other ones will interact with you differently. There are exclusive perks and skills, and then extra hurdles to challenge as an animal.
And yes, some animal forms can ride horses. And just to be clear, this is inspired from real life. But more importantly is that horses are not merely a generic speed buff. You not only have to manage their anxiety, yet riding grants abilities that make riding more effective. Now, as the title is in early access, there are some aspects that need attention prior to launch. For example, many zones feel similar, while they become more mechanically involved, like weathering the cold in the mountains of Kerr. The topography still doesn't feel much different than when frolicking amidst the flowers in Eltville. To be fair, John Mayer's wisdom about outward beauty should be applied when judging MMOs. Yet, a consistent and compelling graphical direction would greatly benefit Project Gorgon. Moreover, if you have taken a long break from the game and have just returned, you may have experienced something similar to what the Lazy Peon did when revisiting EVE Online.
So I didn't play EVE Online for a few days because I was recording something else, so we'll see how hard or easy it is to jump back into the game after playing for a bit with the tutorial and then coming back to it. Because opening the game and looking at the UI, I'm quite overwhelmed after not playing it for a few days.
While juggling many hats is fun, it can be hard to start to regain the momentum after putting them down for some time. Moreover, while I have jabbed Black Desert Online in this video, their loot system, albeit not perfect, does not get in the player's way, assuming your pets are sufficient, yet that's another story. After defeating a mob in Project Gorgon, you have a list of activities performed that if you don't, you feel like you're missing out. But it can take half a dozen clicks per mob to finish leveling up every skill, so you can see what happens after clearing out a room with 5 or more mobs. Moreover, inventory management is challenging. While they've made improvements such as all NPC storage being available at once, and the introduction of the community bin in Cerebral that enables rich veterans to be patrons of the player base, the hoarders out there, like me, still want to keep everything. But you run out of space quickly, and it can be unclear as to what to do with the extra items. Black Desert Online and EverQuest 2 have systems that enable you to feed a fairy or devote extra gear to a deity to ensure that gear doesn't feel wasted. There is a mechanism for this in Project Gorgon, yet it's not available until later in your character's journey. Prof. Koster's set of MMO design laws give language as to why communities form and fail in virtual spaces, yet something that may take people by surprise is that one of Project Gorgon's greatest features is its community. Those who come from MUDs, early MMOs, or persistent Neverwinter Nights 1 servers recognize this as a distinct benefit. People are eager to group, help newcomers, and link arms to adventure together. While you can progress as a solo player, the MMO naturally rewards grouping. Saya, an active member of the community, had this to say during an interview.
I have never had a game session where I haven't seen some impromptu event happen, someone needing help with something and getting 4 or 5 other players to help them, and it becomes a Zerg run of a certain dungeon.
I experienced this myself during my other interview with another veteran.
And let's see if we can get some people. I don't know if we can shoot a bow in the water. The water is not easy out.
And yes, some, if not all, world bosses, when defeated, benefit the community, as the loot is available to anyone in the zone regardless if they participated. Still more, the lead game master had this to say about Project Gorgon's community.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I said it a little over 5 years ago when I started as an admin for Elder Game, and I'll still stand behind it today. Project Gorgon has the absolute best community in the MMO genre, hands down, period. No arguments.
The MMO also has social features that players of Star Wars Galaxy should fondly recall. Just like cantinas in which players danced, played songs, and buffed each other, Project Gorgon has music, dance, lyric, and sculpting systems that reward those who listen, watch, appreciate, or view the art generated by others. Project Gorgon's culture reminds me of passing another player in classic WoW, only to provide a surprise buff to brighten their day. The reward isn't experience, it's simply being nice. But none of this may matter if you've been wondering what the status of the MMORPG is, considering their situation and announcement in November of 2023.
And so when people started donating money, I was kind of flabbergasted. I'm like, I don't understand why you're not angry with us. But no, our community is, I don't have the words. I'm going to tear up again. I'm sorry. They pulled together. They have donated at this point enough money that will keep us able to continue full-time development for several months.
In the matter of 24 hours, we racked up $25,584 in just pure donations. That's not counting VIP. That's not counting backer packages. That's just straight up, we're giving you money donations.
Our community has donated some 30,000 to us, which gives us several more months to figure out what we're doing and where we're going. And in the short term, I think, what can we do to get more eyes on the project and get more people involved? We could practically give the game away if we got enough VIP subscriptions from it. I'm thinking we're going to need to create a version of the game that is in the $15, $10 price point.
The new potential price point are still in flux. Its model is buy to play, similar to Guild Wars 1 and 2. It has a free trial called a demo. The full experience costs just north of $39 when not on sale and has an entirely optional VIP subscription just under $12. It offers some convenience such as additional storage, so it's as pay to win as Path of Exile. It's utterly unique and represents what the indie scene can provide to disenfranchised MMOs. If we want the MMO genre to thrive with complex experiences that honor the RPG in the MMO, then titles like Project Gorgon, including Embers Adrift, Monsters and Memories, and Pantheon have to find a sustainable audience. Dejected in a in managing your own equipment. Okay, we gotta Lawara. This renewal that grants Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more MMO content.